At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Mills, if you to introduce the next order of business, the disciplinary hearing for Sergeant Sean O'Hare. Mr. Mills.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to set the scene. The matter before you involves the, as you indicated, disciplinary hearing involving an officer of the Morris Township Police Department. Charges were preferred against Officer O'Hare, alleging conduct unbecoming a police officer. The committee, as it has in the past, elected to have this matter handled by a hearing officer, in this case an attorney by the name of Noel Shavlik. And Mr. Shavlik did indeed take testimony from all the involved parties. He has rendered a report, a decision, which is forms a part of the material previously submitted to all of you for review.
Mm-hmm.
That material also includes the entirety of the transcript, and I know that you have familiarized yourselves with that. So I'm going to ask you in just a moment to invite up Mr. Ashfano, who I saw in the courtroom in the building a moment ago, and I believe Officer O'Hare and his attorney, Ms. Whitney, are here also. So why don't both of you come up, Ms. Whitney to our right, your left, Mr. Ashfano, our left, your right. While they're setting up, as you know, the duty that is imposed upon this body is that of acting as what's called the appropriate authority, meaning that you are here to make a decision with respect to the disciplinary matters, very important to this officer. Now, I understand Committeeman Nunn wishes to recuse himself, so I'm going to ask him to step down from the dais and do that. Thank you, Matt. I will handle and suggest that the mayor handle this in two phases. One would be a consideration on the part of the committee of the hearing officer's decision, and if there is a motion to affirmatively adopt that decision or reject it, then that motion would be forthcoming from the floor, roll call vote. If the decision is to accept the hearing officer's findings, then the second phase would involve the imposition of penalty, and at that point I would ask the mayor to invite participation from council in terms of the sentencing, the imposition of the penalty. So,
okay.
Turning it back over to you, Mayor Caffrey, at this time.
Sure. First thing I would like to do is to ask for a motion to accept the findings as disseminated to all of us from the hearing officer. We're accepting the findings of what's been disseminated, read, understood, and...
I'll make that motion. I would make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Again,
Mr. Sisler,
I'll second it. Sure.
do you need a roll call on that?
You will. I just want to make clear that what the motion does is it will adopt, if it carries, the findings of the hearing officer that Sergeant O'Hare's conduct was indeed conduct unbecoming. So we're all on the same page. And yes, would ask for a roll call.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Nunn?
No.
Sorry, not here. Mr. Mancuso?
Yes.
Mr. Sisler?
Yes.
Mayor Caffrey?
Yes.
All right, now, Mayor, I'm going to ask that in the ordinary course of these things, the plaintiff goes last, if you will, the defendant goes first,
Sure.
vice versa. So I'm going to suggest that we hear from Ms. Whitney first, if you would.
Ms. Whitney.
I know that you have received submissions by both parties, so I'm sure you're familiar with our position. I would like to just make a statement to you. My client has been in contact with Mr. Flynn about this matter in the past, and he's had occasion to speak to him about it, and he's asked that I make a few things clear for the record or present them to you. First, from the very beginning, Sergeant O'Hare cooperated to the fullest. He was honest, forthcoming, and reasonable when trying to deal with this matter. The department has sought to harshly penalize him for a confidential internal union communication that was conducted while off duty, sent from a personal email within a closed private email chain solely to union members on an email chain that was in fact created solely for the purpose of union communications. This matter was needlessly escalated to this point with an excessive penalty of a 20-day suspension for this originally that was sought by the chief of police against the department's previous pattern of recognizing union-related speech as being protected and not interfering with it. Throughout the process, the union has been extremely supportive of Sergeant O'Hare. In fact, they authored a letter affirming their respect for Sergeant O'Hare, and they filed a union, an unfair labor practice charge with PERC. Unfortunately, the department refused to stay the matter while the matter was pending at PERC, and tried to delay the PERC matter. It was our feeling, Sergeant O'Hare's feeling, that it should be decided by PERC first, which could have saved the taxpayers the money and expense of going through this hearing. And it's unfortunate that it has been drawn out so long. We feel that the penalty that was asked for initially was extremely harsh. And even the penalty that is suggested by the hearing officer at this point is excessive. But regardless of how this turns out, whether it be through a subsequent appeal by Sergeant O'Hare or the resolution of the PERC matter, there are two groups that really, regardless of the outcome, are losers. And that is the union members who work so hard for the community and have been basically shown that their support of their beliefs and acting in furtherance of their union rights will be retaliated against, and the taxpayers who had to pay for this ordeal for months and months, and from what I'm told, is in excess of $25,000. So it's unfortunate that it's come to this point. We want to see a resolution of this that hopefully negates the need for an appeal, but we're prepared to go forward where we have to. And I would also just like to clarify for the record, before any penalization is enforced, the number of hours that will be deemed to be a day. Typically, the past practice is an 8-hour day for a suspension. So I would want clarification on that when the penalty is leveled. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Achafano?
Mr. Sisler, Ms. Johnson, Mr. Mancuso, Mayor, I've had the privilege of serving you as special counsel for police matters through, I believe, 5 chiefs of police. It's been a long time, and I haven't gotten any younger. These matters never please me, as I'm sure they do not please you. Let me just address a couple of things counsel said, and then we'll get to the heart of the matter. I intend to be very brief. The reference to the 20 days, that was an error in the pleading, acknowledged during the hearing and amended to what was originally intended, which was a 10-day suspension upon the recommendation of the chief of police. That was a recommendation I concurred with as your special counsel at the time the charges were referred. Counsel has also referenced this concept of protected union speech. And as you know from your review of Mr. Shavlik's opinion, protected union speech is a very defined concept. It was asserted here, somewhat to my surprise, because I felt that its assertion here as a defense was artificial and would be a counterpoint to the forthcoming approach to this case that defense counsel would have you accept. But whatever the case may be, that defense was thoroughly analyzed, thoroughly briefed by both sides, and rejected by the hearing officer. And you've had his opinion, you've read his opinion, you know why it was rejected. As I've served through 5 chiefs of police in our town, I also, as I know you do, have great respect for the people that who have served in our police department. And I have no less respect for Sergeant O'Hare because of his involvement in this matter. And I honestly do believe that Sergeant O'Hare would acknowledge that his involvement in this matter was indeed unfortunate. But it is an involvement that needs to be addressed and needs to be addressed in a penalty fashion. I find that the action or actions committed by Sergeant O'Hare did, as the hearing officer has ruled, constitute conduct unbecoming a police officer within the ambit and scope of our police regulations. And I honestly think that it is only for Sergeant O'Hare's otherwise sound record as a police officer for a long time in our police department that the position of the chief for a 10-day suspension was not fully accepted by the hearing officer. I think under all the circumstances, the conduct was conduct which had the clear capability of holding the department command structure, every member of the department, the township, and yourselves. Held them up to ridicule, held them to disrepute, whatever you want to call it. It is the type of conduct that cannot be accepted or tolerated in a police department which, case after case in New Jersey, has recognized to be a paramilitary organization subject to a higher degree of discipline and authority. So I submit to you that the penalty of a 5-day suspension, which equates with 5 full tours of duty for this officer in his present rank, is appropriately acceptable. And I respectfully suggest to you that it should be adopted by the board.
Thank you, Mr. Achafano. Before we move forward, do any of the committee men have any questions that they'd like to pose at this time? Okay. As Mr. Achafano has stated, the recommended penalty from the hearing officer is 5 days, 5 tours of duty, full tours of duty. I'm going to ask for a motion at this point to move forward and accept the hearing officer's recommendation. If that motion doesn't pass, at that point we can, Mr. Mills.
Yes, I want to ask Mr., I understand tours of duty only because I've been sitting here as long as Mr. Achafano has been sitting as police counsel. What does that mean in terms of hours, Mr. Achafano?
The chief is here. In the case of Sergeant O'Hare, that would be a total equivalent of
12 hours.
12 hours per duty, per shift.
And I only ask for that clarification because defense counsel had stated her position of 8 hours. So when the committee votes, if they accept the recommendation of 5 tours of duty, we're talking about 5 12-hour days.
Okay.
If I could just note for the record that there is, and as you've seen all the prior documents, you know there was a prior suspension which was served with comp time that Sergeant O'Hare had for 1 day. At that time, he was also working 12-hour tours, but it was an 8-hour suspension, as has been the established practice.
Duly noted. Thank you. Right now, was the motion made yet?
It was not me.
Okay, so if it is, then I think it should be, I think the motion needs to clearly state that if the motion is to impose the 5-day suspension, it should state whether it be with the 5 days as an 8-hour day or 5 tours as a 12-hour day.
Understood. So at this point, I'm going to ask for a motion from the floor. And please, and let's start this way. Let's ask for a motion of, recommended by the hearing officer, of 5 tours, 5 days, which are 12-hour days. Do I hear a motion at that level?
I would make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, I'm going to ask for a roll call.
Yes, Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Mancuso?
Yes.
Mr. Sisler?
Yes.
Mayor Patrick?
Yes. Okay, Mr. Mills, any further comments?
No, thank you, both councils did an excellent job, and they have the thanks of this body for what is essentially a thankless task. Yes, there will be a resolution memorializing, thank you, Mr.
Yes.
We'll have a memorializing resolution which will be adopted at the next meeting, however, the official action of this body has taken place tonight.
So, Mr. Mills, it'll be a non-pro-tem situation with resolution. Resolution.
Well, now, as of then, yes, but the action has been taken.
Thank you, sir.
The resolution merely puts
Memorialize.
that in writing.
Right. Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.